The Void Swarm arrived exactly on schedule, emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 10,000 bioships, each one a living nightmare that had consumed entire civilizations. They moved with purpose, with hunger, with the confidence of a predator that had never met anything stronger. On Station Gamma 7, every Coalition species had evacuated to sealed emergency shelters deep in the station's core. Every species except the humans. They stood in the command center, watching the approaching swarm with expressions ranging from nervous to excited. "That's a lot of ships," Taemin said quietly, clutching his bag of synthesized compounds. "Yeah," Bora agreed. She was already in a flight suit, her fingers dancing across the controls of a fighter craft remotely, but they're flying in predictable patterns. Organic movement following chemical signals. They're not thinking tactically. They're following instinct. "That's what makes them dangerous," Thorvik said from his heavily shielded observation post. "Instinct is faster than thought." "Not faster than reflex," Heejin countered. She was suited up in modified boarding armor, along with 3 other humans who had arrived on the second transport. "And we've got 4 days of practice in this gravity. We know how to move here now." Jinho was monitoring the weapon systems, which he had completely rebuilt in 3 days. The Coalition engineers had watched in horror and awe as he stripped down their most advanced technology and reassembled it into something both simpler and more effective. "Weapons are online," he reported. "Modified plasma rifles are drawing 70% less power and hitting twice as hard. The cooling systems won't fail anymore. And I added kinetic backup weapons because, honestly, sometimes you just need to hit something really hard." "Kinetic weapons against the swarm?" Felix questioned. "They adapt to energy weapons, but they're almost immune to physical force." "Coalition kinetic weapons," Jinho clarified. "I'm using Earth-standard velocities. Turns out when you accelerate metal to speeds that Coalition species consider dangerously excessive, it doesn't matter how much the swarm adapts. Physics is physics." Sangwoo was in the environmental control room, overseeing the deployment of what he cheerfully called aggressive gardening. Millions of earth plant spores, cultivated and concentrated over 4 days, ready to flood the combat zone. The oxygen generators were running at maximum, building up reserves of that wonderfully toxic gas. "Ready when you are," Sangwoo reported, sneezing. "Though I should warn you, some of these spores are going to be really allergenic. I'm dying here and I'm wearing a filtration mask. If they're bothering you, they'll probably kill the swarm," Taemin said. "That's kind of the point." Wu Jin was coordinating communications, translating between the humans' casual Earth speech and the Coalition's more formal protocols. He also took notes constantly, documenting everything for what he called the most important anthropological study in human history. Da-Un sat in the pilot's chair of a Coalition fighter craft, making adjustments to the controls. The station's flight commander watched nervously as she reconfigured systems that had taken decades to perfect. "Are you sure about these modifications?" the commander asked. "Completely," Da-Un said. "Your safety limiters are set way too low. This ship can pull at least 8 Gs before structural failure, but you've got it capped at 3. I'm raising it to 6. That's still conservative by Earth standards." "6 Gs will kill the pilot," the commander protested. "Kill your pilots," Da-Un corrected. "I'll be fine. Humans can handle 9 Gs with proper training. I've pulled 7 during atmospheric racing. 6 is uncomfortable but manageable." The commander looked like they wanted to argue further, but the swarm was getting closer. There was no more time for debate. "All Coalition forces retreat to safe distance," Thorvik ordered. "Human team, you're cleared to engage when ready." "Already ready," Bora said. She brought her fighter to active status, and 6 other human-piloted craft lit up on the tactical display. 7 fighters against 10,000 swarm ships. The numbers were absurd. "Phase 1, Taemin said. Deploy the atmosphere." Sangwoo activated the environmental systems. Invisible to sensors but deadly to the swarm, oxygen began flooding into the space around the station. Concentrated Earth atmosphere, mixed with plant spores and compounds synthesized from Taemin's blood chemistry. It spread like a cloud, turning normal space into Earth normal space. The leading edge of the swarm entered the cloud, and the effect was immediate. Ships began convulsing, their organic hulls blistering and smoking. The creatures inside were dying from oxygen poisoning, their tissues breaking down from exposure to compounds that Earth life considered normal. "It's working," Felix breathed. watching hundreds of swarm ships falter and die. But not fast enough, Bora observed. They're adapting. Look, the rear ships are changing course. They're trying to go around the cloud. Then we don't let them go around, Dayun said. All fighters engage. Keep them in the kill zone. 7 human pilots launched from the station, and what happened next would be analyzed by coalition military academies for generations. The humans flew like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They pulled maneuvers that should have been impossible, pushed their ships beyond safety limits, and treated fighter combat like it was an Earth extreme sport. Dayun led the formation, her cargo pilot failures translating into combat excellence. She could calculate trajectories in her head faster than most computers. She saw patterns in chaos. Her supposed test anxiety disappeared when there was no test, only action. Bora was right behind her, laughing as she pushed her fighter through a gap between swarm ships that the computer said was too narrow. The computer was wrong. She made it through with centimeters to spare, firing Jinho's modified weapons into the swarm's formation. The swarm tried to adapt. It tried to learn the humans' patterns, but the humans didn't have patterns. They had instinct, creativity, and the kind of split-second decision-making that evolution on a death world had burned into their DNA. Phase 2, Hyojin called. Boarding teams, go. This was the insane part, Thorvik thought. The part that couldn't possibly work. 4 humans in modified armor, launching from the station toward active swarm ships, planning to board them and fight inside. Hyojin led the boarding team, magnetic boots carrying her across the hull of a swarm vessel. The ship's organic exterior tried to defend itself, extending tendrils to grab her. She tore through them with her bare hands, her injured body more than strong enough in the low gravity and her Earth-evolved strength. The interior of the ship was a nightmare, dark, hostile, filled with swarm creatures adapted for combat. They swarmed toward the humans, expecting easy prey. Instead, they met Earth's persistence predators in close quarters. Hyojin moved through the ship's corridors like water. Her dancer's grace translated into combat efficiency. Her team followed, and where they went, the swarm died. Not from weapons, though they carried those. Mainly from contact, from breathing the same air, from the simple fact that humans existed in a way that was toxic to swarm biology. This is too easy, one of Hyojin's team said, sounding almost disappointed. They're dying before we even fight them properly. That's the oxygen in our breath, Hyojin explained, smashing through a biological barrier. We're exhaling poison to them. Just keep moving. Find the ship's core. On the station, Velix watched the tactical display with growing disbelief. The swarm was dying. Not slowly, not gradually, but rapidly. Systematically. 7 human pilots were herding thousands of ships into kill zones. 4 boarding team members were tearing through swarm vessels from the inside, and all of it was being done by humans who had described themselves as failures. How? Thorvik asked. How are they doing this? Because they're from Earth, Wu Jin said, still taking notes. Earth doesn't allow weakness to survive. Everything there is either predator or prey, and everything is fighting everything else all the time. These humans aren't special by Earth standards. They're just normal. But normal on Earth means extraordinary everywhere else. A massive swarm command ship emerged from the rear of the formation, twice the size of the others. It began emitting signals, trying to coordinate the remaining forces into a more effective formation. That's their command vessel, Velix identified. If we destroy that, the rest will lose cohesion. I've got it, Dawn said. Her fighter accelerated toward the command ship, and 3 other human pilots followed. The coalition pilots would have needed a full squadron and multiple attack runs. The humans did it in a single pass. Jinho's modified weapons tore through the command ship's exterior. Bora's piloting put them in position for shots that the swarm couldn't defend against. And when they finished their attack run, the command ship was dead in space, venting atmosphere and dying from oxygen poisoning. The remaining swarm began to flee. For the first time in their existence as a species, they ran. They had encountered something their evolution hadn't prepared them for. They had met Deathworlders. 4 hours after the battle began, it was over. The Void Swarm was gone. Not defeated in the traditional sense, but eradicated. Those that survived fled into deep space, their collective intelligence marking this region as forbidden territory. Station Gamma 7 was intact. Coalition casualties were 0. The second Earth transport arrived 3 days later, and this time the station was ready. Sort of. You could never really be ready for humans, Felix was learning. The ship was larger than the first one, but still small by coalition military standards. It carried 5 more humans, along with cargo that made the sensors scream warnings about biological hazards, toxic materials, and unidentified threats. They brought plants, a cargo supervisor said, staring at the manifest in confusion. Why would they bring plants to a war zone? Earth plants? Thorvik asked with growing concern. According to this, yes. Something called ferns, bamboo, and mint? The supervisor's translator struggled with the foreign words. Are these weapons? On Earth, probably, Thorvik muttered. The new arrivals came through the airlock, and once again every scanner went into alert mode. But these humans were different from Taemin and Daun. They moved with more confidence. They smiled more easily. And somehow that made them more terrifying. The first to step through was Hyejin, a woman who moved like she was dancing even though she was just walking. Her file said she was a former athlete whose career ended due to injury. The medical scanner said her injured body could still crush steel with her bare hands. Wow, she said, bouncing slightly in the low gravity. This is amazing. It's like being underwater, but you can still breathe. Can we increase the gravity? This feels too easy. This is our maximum safe level, Felix explained, his body flickering with nervous colors. Oh, sorry. Hyejin looked genuinely apologetic. I didn't mean to complain. It's just really light. I feel like I'm going to float away if I'm not careful. Next came Sang-woo, carrying several containers marked with symbols that made the station's AI refuse to translate them. He had kind eyes and kept sneezing. Sorry, he said between sneezes, allergic to the station's air filtration system. It's got some kind of spore-based element. My body doesn't like it. Here, I brought gifts. He started opening containers. These are earth plants. Peace offerings. This one's a fern. This one's bamboo. And this little guy is mint. They're all pretty harmless. Harmless. A botanist approached carefully, scanning the fern. The readings made them step back quickly. This plant produces oxygen at concentrations that would be lethal to most species, and it releases spores that contain complex proteins similar to... They checked the scan again. Similar to the void swarm's cellular structure, but stable. This is incredible. Really? It's just a fern. Sang-woo looked at the plant with new appreciation. We have millions of them on Earth. They grow everywhere. You can't get rid of them even if you try. Bora came next, and she immediately made Thorvik nervous. She had the eyes of someone who had seen too much speed and wanted more. Her file said she'd lost her commercial pilot license due to reckless flying. Nice station, she said, looking around with professional interest. Older model, yeah? Probably can't pull more than 2 Gs of acceleration without stressing the superstructure. The docking bay's well designed, though. Good angles. How can you tell all that just from looking? Felix asked. I pay attention, Bora said with a shrug. It's kind of my thing. Numbers, vectors, angles. I see them everywhere. It made me a terrible commercial pilot. Regulations said I had to follow the designated approach paths, but I could always see faster routes. Got written up constantly for unauthorized maneuvers. Eventually they took my license. But you can still fly? Thorvik asked carefully. Oh yeah, I just can't do it legally on Earth, but this isn't Earth, so... She grinned. What have you got for me to fly? The last 2 humans were Woojin and Jinho. Woojin was an anthropologist who immediately started asking questions about coalition culture, government, and social structures. Jinho was a mechanic who took one look at the station's weapons system and made a sound of physical pain. This is your military technology? Jinho asked, staring at a plasma rifle mounted on the wall. This design is so inefficient. Look at this power coupling. Half the energy is wasted as heat, and this cooling system, it's going to fail after sustained firing. Who designed this? That weapon represents 2,000 years of coalition engineering refinement, the station's weapons officer said defensively. Then you've been refining it wrong for 2,000 years. Jinho replied. He wasn't being mean, just stating a fact. Can I take it apart? I can fix it, make it better. You want to modify our most advanced weapon? Advanced? Jinho looked genuinely confused. This is advanced? On Earth, this would be considered, I don't know, early experimental stage. We have handheld weapons that hit harder than this, and they're powered by simple chemical reactions. Taemin appeared, looking slightly less exhausted than before. 3 days of sleep and regular meals had helped. "Oh good, you're here. I need to show you what we found." He led the group to the research laboratory, where the contained void swarm specimen was still cowering in the corner of its cell, as far from the humans as possible. "So here's what we learned," Taemin began, falling into lecture mode. "The swarm is essentially a super adaptive organism. It learns from every attack and adjusts, but it evolved in a very specific environment. Low oxygen, high methane, moderate temperatures. Earth's environment is toxic to it." "How toxic?" Hijin asked. "Very. Our atmosphere would kill it in minutes. Our body chemistry is lethal on contact. Even our plants produce compounds that disrupt its cellular structure." Taemin pointed at the specimen. "Watch this." Sangwoo approached with a small pot containing the mint plant. He held it near the containment field, not even touching it. The swarm creature recoiled violently, pressing itself against the far wall. "It can sense the plant through the shield," Wu Jin asked, fascinated. "It can sense Earth biology," Taemin confirmed. "Everything from our world registers as a threat to it. We're basically walking weapons to the swarm. The problem is we only have 7 humans and a few plants. The swarm has thousands of ships, so we need to be creative," Jinho said. He was already looking at the station's systems, his mind clearly working through possibilities. "Can you synthesize Taemin's skin chemistry? Make it into a weapon?" "We've been working on that," Felix said. "But our manufacturing systems aren't designed for Earth-based compounds. They're too aggressive. They break down our equipment. What if we don't try to make Earth compounds?" Bora suggested. "What if we just bring Earth environment to them? Pump oxygen into space. Release those spores Sangwoo's plants make. Turn the battlefield into an Earth-like zone." "That would kill most coalition species too," Thorvik pointed out. "Not if they're in sealed ships," Bora countered. "Your vessels can handle different atmospheres, right? You evacuate the combat zone, pump it full of oxygen and plant spores, and let the swarm fly into it." "That's..." Felix paused. "That's actually a viable strategy. What about the ships themselves?" Hijin asked. "Can we board them? Fight them directly?" Every coalition being in the room made sounds of alarm. "Board a void swarm ship?" Thorvik said. "That would be suicide. The interior is hostile to all known life forms." "Hostile to coalition life," Hijin corrected. "But we're not coalition. We're from Earth, different rules." Jinho was nodding. "If their ships are adapted to their biology, and their biology is vulnerable to ours, then their ships might be vulnerable too. We'd need to test it, but theoretically..." "You're seriously suggesting that humans board void swarm vessels and fight them in close quarters?" Felix couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why not? Hijin did a few stretches, testing the low gravity. "It's what we're built for. Humans are persistence predators. We chase things down, we adapt. We survive in conditions that kill other species. This is literally our evolutionary advantage." "You're a former athlete with a knee injury," Thorvik said. "On Earth, yeah. Here?" Hijin jumped, and in the low gravity she sailed nearly to the ceiling. "Here, my knee doesn't even hurt. The reduced gravity takes all the pressure off. I can move better here than I could in my prime on Earth." Taemin watched his fellow humans plan an assault on an unstoppable force, using nothing but their basic biology and confidence. A week ago he would have called this insane. Now, after seeing what happened when he accidentally touched the swarm specimen, he was starting to think it might actually work. "How long until the swarm arrives?" Sangwoo asked, still holding his mint plant. 4 days, Felix replied. "Then we have 4 days to prepare," Jinho said. "I'll work on your weapon systems. Bora can train your pilots. Sangwoo can cultivate more plants. Herjin can develop boarding tactics. Taemin can synthesize whatever biological weapons we can manufacture. And Woojin can help coordinate everything." "What about me?" Dayun asked. "You're our best pilot," Bora said. "You'll lead the attack." "I'm a cargo pilot who failed her exams," Daun protested. "On Earth," Bora reminded her. "Here, you're the best they've got. Accept it." Felix looked at this group of humans, these self-described failures and washouts, as they calmly discussed fighting a threat that had destroyed coalition fleets. They weren't boasting. They weren't trying to be heroes. They were just problem-solving, using the tools they had available, and the tools they had available were themselves. 4 days later, the Void Swarm would arrive, and they would discover what it meant to face Earth's weakest. Taemin stood in front of the containment field, watching the Void Swarm creature pulse and writhe. Behind him, every researcher had moved to maximum safe distance. Some had left the room entirely. Thorvik monitored from behind an additional shield, his liquid metal body tense. I need to examine it properly, Taman said. Can you lower the inner containment field? The room went silent. Then everyone started talking at once, their translators creating a chaos of objections. Absolutely not, Thorvik said firmly. That field is the only thing keeping it from spreading. It adapts to energy. It consumes matter. It learns from every attack. I'm not going to attack it, Taman replied calmly. He pulled out a small device from his bag, something that looked like a medical scanner. I just need to get accurate readings. The field is interfering with my equipment. Your equipment? A researcher pointed at Taman's scanner. That's primitive technology. Chemical analysis and basic electromagnetic reading? Our quantum scanners can't identify its structure. And you think that ancient device will work? Sometimes simple is better, Taman said. He looked at the creature again, tilting his head. Look, I understand you're scared, but I'm a medical intern. I've dealt with infectious diseases, parasites, aggressive bacteria. This is just another organism. Yes, it's from space. Yes, it's weird, but it's still biological. It has to follow some kind of rules. It doesn't follow rules, Thorvik said. That's why it's unstoppable. Everything biological follows rules, Taman insisted. Let me do my job. Lower the field, just the inner one. Keep the outer 5 active. Dayun stepped forward. If you're sure about this, I'm not sure about anything, Taman admitted. But someone has to try. That's why I'm here, right? After a long moment, Thorvik gave the order. The inner containment field flickered and died. 5 layers of protection remained, but now only one barrier stood between Taman and the creature. The void swarm specimen immediately surged toward the opening, pressing against the next field. It seemed to sense Taman, reaching for him with tendrils of living darkness. Taman didn't run. He stepped closer, raising his scanner. Fascinating, he murmured. Its reading is a colony organism. Millions of individual cells working together. The adaptation isn't instant, it's learned. Like an immune system, but external. Please step back, Thorvik urged. One more reading, Taman said. He moved right up to the second containment field. Only one barrier separated him from the creature now. I need to measure its chemical signature. The field is still distorting the readings. No, Thorvik said. That's close enough, but Taman wasn't listening. He was focused on his scanner, frowning at the data. Without thinking, he reached out and touched the containment field controls. Don't, Thorvik shouted. The second field deactivated for just a moment, a fraction of a second. But it was enough. The void swarm creature lunged through the gap, faster than any coalition being could react. What happened next took 3 seconds. But those 3 seconds changed everything. The creature's tendrils wrapped around Taman's hand. The black tissue began burrowing into his skin, its usual attack pattern. Every being in the room watched in horror, frozen by the speed of the disaster. This was how the swarm killed. This was how it consumed everything. Taman's reflexes, honed on a planet where milliseconds meant the difference between life and death, kicked in. He pulled back, but not fast enough to avoid contact. The creature clung to him, trying to penetrate deeper. Then it started smoking. The void swarm tissue turned gray, then white. Then it simply fell apart, crumbling into dust that drifted to the floor. The creature's main mass recoiled, pulling back from the field as if it had been burned. It retreated to the far side of the remaining containment layers, pulsing with what looked like distress. Taman stared at his hand. There was a slight red mark where the creature had touched him, but nothing else. No wound, no invasion. The swarm tissue was just gone. What happened? He asked, genuinely confused. Did I kill it? The room remained silent. Every scanner was focused on Taman now, analyzing what had just occurred. The data came back and Thorvik read it with growing disbelief. Your skin pH is 5.5, Thorvik said slowly. That's acidic enough to damage the creature's cellular structure. Your body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. That's in the lethal range for void swarm tissue. Your immune system detected the intrusion and released chemicals that are... He paused, checking the readings again. The chemicals are classified as Class 5 biological weapons in 14 coalition systems. My immune system. Taman looked at his hand again. But I didn't do anything. This is just normal. This is what human bodies do. Normal? A researcher stepped forward, mandibles clicking with emotion. You just destroyed void swarm tissue through passive contact. Your body's natural state is lethal to the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known, and you call it normal? I didn't mean to kill it, Timon said, distressed. I was just trying to examine it. Is there any left? Can I get a sample? Everyone stared at him. He had just accidentally killed a piece of the unstoppable swarm, and his concern was about getting a sample for analysis. Da-Yun started laughing. It was a slightly hysterical sound. Of course, she said. Of course, Earth's biology is toxic to space monsters. Why wouldn't it be? Everything on Earth is either poisonous, venomous, or trying to eat you. Why would we be different? But I'm not poisonous, Timon protested. I'm just me. You are poison, Thorvik said flatly, to them. Your existence is lethal to the swarm. The implication settled over the room like a weight. The remaining void swarm specimen cowered in its containment, as far from the humans as it could get. It had encountered something its adaptations couldn't handle, something its learning algorithms couldn't solve. It had met Earth biology, and Earth biology had won without even trying. We need to test this further, Timon said, his medical mind taking over. If my skin chemistry affects them, what about other humans? What about Earth bacteria? Earth viruses? What about our atmosphere composition? Your atmosphere? Thorvik pulled up the readings from the docking bay. 21% oxygen. That concentration is toxic to most species. The swarm creatures breathe methane and sulfur compounds. If they encountered Earth's atmosphere, they'd die, Timon finished. Oxygen poisoning. It would corrode their tissues. He started pacing, thinking out loud. And if physical contact is lethal, then any environment humans can survive in would be deadly to them. Our world isn't special to us. It's just home. But to them, it's a nightmare, Da-Un said. Earth is their nightmare. Felix, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. The old ones weren't warning us away from Earth to protect the galaxy from you. They were warning you away from the galaxy to protect the galaxy from accidentally provoking you. But we're not dangerous, Timon said. Look at me. I'm exhausted. I have anxiety. I can barely function. You just killed part of the void swarm by touching it, Thorvik pointed out. By accident. While trying to be helpful, you're not dangerous because of what you do. You're dangerous because of what you are. Timon looked at his hand again at the slight red mark that was already fading. On Earth, this would be nothing. A minor irritation. Not even worth mentioning. But here, in the wider galaxy, it was a weapon. So what do? He asked quietly. We test your theory, Felix said, his body showing colors of renewed hope. If Earth biology is toxic to the swarm, then we can use that. Weaponize it. Your atmosphere, your chemistry, your immune system. I'm not a weapon, Timon said. No, Thorvik agreed. You're worse. You're a doctor. You understand how to target biological systems. You know how to make infections spread. You're a healer who understands death better than most warriors. Timon thought about this. He thought about the swarm approaching, about the billions of beings who would die, about the desperate message that had reached Earth. He thought about the medical oath he would take when he graduated. First, do no harm, but the swarm wasn't a patient. It was a plague, and sometimes the only way to save lives was to stop the infection. Okay, he said finally. Let's figure out how to cure this galaxy, even if the cure is us. Outside the research lab, the void swarm continued its approach. It didn't know yet that it was heading toward something it had never encountered before, something that had evolved in conditions so hostile that the galaxy itself was soft by comparison. It was heading toward Earth's weakest, and Earth's weakest had just declared war without even meaning to. The human transport arrived exactly on schedule, which was the first surprising thing. Most species struggled with accurate navigation in deep space. The second surprising thing was that the ship was small, barely larger than a personal shuttle. The third surprising thing was that every proximity sensor on Station Gamma 7 screamed warnings when it approached. Collision alert, the station's AI announced. Extreme velocity object approaching. Impact in 30 seconds. That's not an impact trajectory, the sensor operator said, his 6 eyes wide with confusion. That's a docking trajectory. But nothing can dock at that speed. The ship will disintegrate. They watched the human ship approach at speeds that should have turned it into vapor when it hit the docking port. Instead, there was a gentle clunk, perfectly aligned, and the status board showed a successful connection. The ship had been traveling fast enough to escape most planetary gravity wells, and the pilot had docked it like it was standing still. Felix hurried to the docking bay, followed by Commander Thorvik, a large being made of what looked like liquid metal. They waited behind 3 layers of containment shields. The protocols for meeting a Deathworlder were clear. Maximum distance, maximum protection, and weapons ready. The airlock hissed open. The atmosphere that poured out made several nearby crew members collapse immediately. The station's sensors went wild. Oxygen concentration 21%, a technician gasped. That's in the extreme hazard range. How are they breathing pure oxidizer? Carbon dioxide at 400 parts per million, another added. Nitrogen at 78%. This atmosphere would kill most of us in minutes. Lower the shield slightly, Felix ordered. We need to see them. The shields flickered and the humans stepped through. The first one was Taman. He was small by human standards, according to the old database records, about average height for a coalition species. He wore simple clothing and carried a large bag over one shoulder. His face showed exhaustion with dark circles under his eyes. He looked fragile. Then the station's medical scanner activated automatically, and the readings made Felix's body go rigid with shock. Bone density 3 times galactic average, the medical AI reported. Muscle fiber tensile strength rated at extreme hazard level. Cardiovascular system capable of operating in zero oxygen environments for extended periods. Immune system classification, apocalypse class. Warning, this being's touch could be lethal to 70% of known species. Taman smiled nervously and waved. Hello, can you understand me? I'm Taman. Sorry about the atmospheric contamination. We tried to filter it, but Dayun said it would take too long. The pilot, Dayun, stepped up beside him. She was taller, with her hair tied back and a relaxed expression that didn't match the danger she represented. According to the scanners, her reflexes operated at speeds that most species needed computer assistance to achieve. Her muscle coordination was rated as impossible by the medical AI. Nice station, Dayun said, looking around. A bit low on gravity, though. This is what, 0.3 standard Earth gravity? Feels like walking on the moon. 0.7 coalition standard, Thorvik managed to say. His liquid metal body was vibrating with fear. That is our maximum safe level. Higher gravity would crush most of our crew. Dayun blinked. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to insult. It's just really light. I feel like I might float away. Taman elbowed her gently. To Felix's horror, the casual touch would have shattered his exoskeleton. Dayun didn't even seem to notice. We brought supplies, Taman said, setting down his bag carefully. Even that gentle motion made the deck plating crack slightly under the weight. Medical equipment, some earth medicine, antibiotics, painkillers. I wasn't sure what you'd need. Also, I brought some food. Just in case. Are you okay, Ambassador? You're turning colors really fast. Felix realized he was cycling through panic colors unconsciously. He forced himself to calm down. I am functional. Thank you for coming. Please follow us to the briefing room. We have much to discuss. They walked through the station corridors, and everywhere they passed, crew members fled. Some pressed themselves against walls. Others scrambled into side passages. It wasn't that the humans looked threatening. They looked ordinary, even pleasant. But the sensors told a different story. Every scanner they passed showed the same readings. Extreme hazard, lethal risk, maximum caution advised. Are we doing something wrong? Taman asked quietly. Everyone seems scared. They can see what you are, Thorvik said bluntly. Your biology is concerning. Our biology? Dayun looked confused. We're just humans. Standard issue. Nothing special about us. Your bone density could shatter most known species on contact, Thorvik explained. Your muscle strength is classified as a weapon in 70 coalition systems. Your immune system is more aggressive than most military bioweapons. And you say you are nothing special? Taman and Dayun looked at each other. Then Taman laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Oh no, he said. Oh no, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You think we're warriors, don't you? You think Earth sent you fighters? You are from the quarantine world, Felix said. The old ones warned us never to make contact. They said even your weakest could destroy fleets. I failed my military physical 3 times, Taman said. I have anxiety attacks. I can't do more than 20 push-ups without stopping. I get dizzy in 0 gravity. I'm not a warrior. I'm barely functional by Earth standards. I couldn't pass the commercial pilot exam, Dayun added. Too much test anxiety. I haul cargo because no one trusts me with passengers. We're not special. We're the ones who couldn't make it. The words should have been discouraging. They should have crushed Velix's hope. Instead, they made something worse than fear settle in his chest. Because if these were the ones who couldn't make it, what were the ones who could? They reached the briefing room. Velix showed them the tactical display, the red swarm approaching like a tide of death. He explained how the void swarm adapted to every weapon, learned from every battle, and consumed everything organic. We've lost 70 worlds, Velix said. Billions of beings. Our greatest warriors died in minutes. Our most powerful weapons made them stronger. We are out of options. Taman studied the display, his tired eyes focusing. Can I see one? A void swarm creature? A sample or a prisoner? We have one captured specimen, Thorvik said slowly. But it's extremely dangerous. It's killed 47 researchers who tried to study it. I need to examine it, Taman said. If I'm going to help, I need to understand what we're dealing with. It's the medical approach. Diagnose before treating. You want to get close to it? Felix couldn't believe what he was hearing. Even behind 6 containment fields, it's killed beings who touch the outer controls. Then I'll be careful, Taman said simply. Look, I came here to help. I might not be a warrior, but I am a medical intern. Almost a doctor. I know how to analyze biological threats. Let me do what I'm trained for. Thorvik and Velix exchanged looks, or at least they communicated their mutual concern through their respective biological methods. If you die, Thorvik said finally, Earth might send something worse to investigate. That's cheerful, Doan muttered. I won't die, Taman said with more confidence than he felt. Probably. Just show me the specimen. They led him to the research laboratory, a heavily fortified room with 6 layers of shielding. In the center, suspended in multiple containment fields, was a writhing mass of black tissue that seemed to drink in light. It pulsed with unnatural life, and even through all the barriers, Velix could feel its hunger. That's it? Taman asked. It doesn't look that scary. Every being in the room stared at him. Not scary, a researcher whispered. That thing dissolved my predecessor in 6 seconds. Taman stepped closer to the shields, studying the creature with clinical interest. His exhausted expression shifted into something more focused. Despite his anxiety, despite his self-proclaimed weakness, he looked at the galaxy's greatest nightmare like it was an interesting problem to solve. And Velix realized something terrifying. This human, this self-described failure who couldn't pass a fitness test, wasn't afraid. He was curious. On Earth, Velix thought, what kind of world makes someone look at a universe-ending horror with curiosity instead of fear? He was about to find out. The message traveled through the darkness of space for 3 weeks before it found someone willing to listen. Ambassador Velix pressed his translucent appendages against the communication console, his body flickering with colors that meant desperation in his language. Around him, the command center of Station Gamma 7 buzzed with the panic of beings who knew they were about to die. Send it again, Velix said, his voice translator turning his chemical signals into words. Send the distress call to the quarantine zone. His aide, a floating creature covered in sensory tendrils, shivered with fear. Ambassador, the old ones forbade contact with that sector. The warnings are clear. The beings there are classified as extreme hazard level. We are already dead, Velix replied, watching the tactical display. Red dots swarmed across the screen, each one representing a void swarm ship. They had consumed 70 worlds in 6 months. Nothing could stop them. Energy weapons made them stronger. Kinetic weapons passed through them. Biological agents fed them. What does it matter if we anger something in a quarantine zone? At least we tried everything. The message went out again, translated into mathematics and basic chemistry, the universal languages of intelligent life. It was simple. Help us. We are dying. Please respond. For 2 days, there was silence. The void swarm came closer. Evacuation ships fled in every direction, but everyone knew there was nowhere to run. The swarm could travel faster than any coalition vessel. It could adapt to any environment. It had already destroyed species that had evolved for war. Then, on the 3rd day, a response came. The communication was strange. It used old radio waves, the kind of technology most civilizations abandoned millions of years ago. The voice that spoke was quiet, tired, and confused. Hello? This is Earth Medical Transport 7. We received your distress signal. Is this real? Are you actually aliens? Because if this is another prank by the station crew, I'm really not in the mood. I've been awake for 36 hours. Felix's body flashed through, colors so fast his aide had to look away. Earth. The quarantine. World. Something was actually responding. From the planet that made the old ones flee in terror. This is Ambassador Velix of the Galactic Coalition, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Yes, we are what you call aliens. We are real. We are dying. We sent our plea into your sector because we have no other options. There was a pause. In the background of the transmission, Velix could hear strange sounds. Beeping. Voices speaking in harsh, sharp tones. Something that sounded like screaming, though it cut off quickly. Okay, hold on, the voice said. I need to report this to someone. Stay on this channel. My name is Tamin, by the way. I'm a medical intern. Just wait a second. Medical intern. Felix didn't know what that meant. But it didn't sound like a warrior class. He checked the Universal Translation Database. Intern, a person in training. Medical related to healing. His hope, which had briefly sparked, began to fade. They had called for warriors from a death world, and they got a student healer. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Felix was about to try the transmission again when the human's voice returned. Okay, so I talked to my supervisor, and she talked to her supervisor, and apparently this went all the way up to someone important. They said I should go. Can you believe that? Me, I failed my military fitness test. 3 times. I get panic attacks when there's too much pressure, and they want me to go to space and meet actual aliens. Please, Felix said, his body turning the dark purple of grief. The Void Swarm will be here in less than 2 weeks. They will destroy everything. If Earth has any warriors, any weapons, any hope to offer, we will take it. Even if it's just one being. Even if it's just you. Another pause. Felix heard the human take a deep breath. All right, Tamin said. I'll come, but I'm bringing medical supplies, not weapons. I don't know how to use weapons. I barely passed basic combat training, and that was mostly because the instructor felt sorry for me. I don't think I can fight your Void Swarm thing. Anything you can offer will be more than we have now, Felix replied. He wanted to ask about Earth's military, about their legendary warriors, about the weapons that made the old ones create a quarantine zone. But the human had agreed to come. That was something. I'll need coordinates, Tamin said. And, I should probably bring someone who knows how to fly properly. My pilot license is just for atmospheric flight. Oh, and I should bring food. Do you guys eat food? Or is that offensive to ask? Despite everything, despite the approaching death of his entire civilization, Felix felt something he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't quite hope. It was more like curiosity. This human seemed so normal, so unprepared, so completely unsuitable for what was coming. We will transmit coordinates now, Felix said. And yes, we consume nutrients. We would be interested to learn about Earth food. How long will it take you to arrive? The nav computer says about 6 days at maximum speed, another voice replied. This one was female with the same harsh accent. This is Daun. I'm the pilot. Well, cargo pilot. Couldn't make it as a real pilot. But I can get us there, probably. Probably. Felix's aide flickered with alarm colors. She's joking, Tamin said quickly. She's good at flying. Better than most. She just couldn't pass the commercial license exam because she gets test anxiety. Like me. We're a great team of failures, actually. Very reassuring, right? Felix didn't understand humor well. Especially not alien humor, but he thought the human might be trying to lighten the mood. It didn't work. In 6 days, the swarm would be 4 days away from the station. But 6 days was better than nothing. We will await your arrival, Felix said. Thank you for responding. Thank you for coming. Even if you cannot save us, thank you for trying when no one else would. Yeah, well, Tamin said softly. That's kind of the human thing to do, isn't it? Someone calls for help, you show up, even if you're terrible at helping. We'll see you in 6 days. Earth Medical Transport 7 signing off. The connection ended. Velix stood in the command center, surrounded by his terrified staff, and wondered what he had just done. He had called to the quarantine world. He had asked Deathworlders for help. And they were sending a medical student with anxiety and a pilot who couldn't pass her exams. The old ones had warned the galaxy to never contact Earth. They said the planet was too dangerous. They said its inhabitants were walking nightmares. They said even the weakest human could destroy fleets. Looking at the approaching swarm, Felix hoped desperately that the old ones had been right. because in 6 days he was going to find out exactly what Earth's weakest could do, and he had a terrible feeling that he wasn't ready for the answer.